Hello, seniors. This is Miss Cohn here, and since this is a short week this week, um, because of PSAT testing, and you guys are writing a paper, I thought it might be nice if I just kind of go through the whole weekly agenda with you via Screencastify and talk about different things I wanted to talk to you about this week. All right, so our goals for this week, I want to make sure you understand what you're doing for this comparative analysis paper where you're using either Milgram or Zimbardo as a lens to explain the behavior of the character in the movie you watched last week, A Few Good Men, and you're going to be writing the paper, okay? I am not requiring the paper to be due until Wednesday, November 4th at 9 p.m., okay? That'll give you a couple Wednesdays to work on it. It'll give you a weekend to work on it. It'll give you some time to watch the movie again if you want to watch it again. If you want to come in next Wednesday and watch the movie again, we can probably arrange to make that happen. That would be Wednesday, the 28th of October. We could probably arrange that. You just have to email me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the assignment description. Under number 1, it's just the description. 2 is where y'all actually turn in the assignment. Okay, it links it to the assignment itself. All right, so here is the assignment description for the comparative analysis paper. It's worth 200 points. Okay, so it is not something you want to mess around with. Okay, and I'm just going to sort of read it with you. In the paper, you're going to analyze the film A Few Good Men through the lens of one of the texts that focuses on the concept of obedience as discussed in class. So either through the lens of Milgram or Zimbardo, you're going to pick one. Your focus is to better understand the film A Few Good Men, a movie about obedience and disobedience in the military. All right, you also need to focus on one character in the film. So your goal is to focus on one character in the film. You're imagining that you're using the conclusions that Milgram or Zimbardo, you're going to pick either Milgram or Zimbardo, the conclusions they draw about human nature to explain the character's behaviors and interpret the character in the film. So you're going to shed light on the character's behaviors in the film using Milgram or Zimbardo and the conclusions that they draw about human nature from their studies that we read before fall break. The rating on obedience that you choose to work with and the conclusions about human nature that the research draws from the research will help you shed light on that character. So you've got to pick a character from the movie. Good ones to pick are Kathy, Jessup, Galloway, Dawson, Downey. The goal is to examine a character and explain their behavior using the conclusions. The thesis should be the focal point of your paper. It should include the character, the lens, so the name of the research study and the researcher you're using as the lens, and the conclusions about human nature from the study you're using to examine the character, or at least mention of them. Your paper should then proceed to develop your answer in a well-detailed and well-organized fashion. You need to also cite both in text and a works cited page, the article and the film. Okay, so again, you're going to be using in-text citations for this one. Okay, introductions probably not going to be cited, if much. You'll need at least one citation at the end of each of the two summary paragraphs. And then the analysis paragraphs are going to have citations weaved in, okay? All right, so, and again, you got to have a works cited page. All right, so suggestions for organization of the comparative analysis paper. Again, there are other ways to organize this paper, but here is what I would do. I would write paragraph 1 as the introduction, okay? You're going to set up the problem or issue under discussion, okay? Bring the reader into the idea of obedience to authority, the abuse of power, the effects of environment on adherence to authority. Bring the reader into the idea of the paper. And then you're going to make sure you have a thesis, okay? Make sure you introduce the title of the um, the article you're going to use, the title of the study, the researcher, bring the reader into all that. And then you're going to have a thesis that goes beyond the obvious, okay, that makes a claim about the character in reference to the lens you are using. Your thesis should reflect the following ideas. The conclusions that Milgram or Zimbardo draw from their study can shed light on character X's behavior from Aaron Sorkin's A Few Good Men, okay? Then you're going to summarize the text you're using as a lens. That's the study, and particularly focus on the conclusions about human nature the researcher draws from the study. But again, you are summarizing, okay? So you want to make sure you talk about methodology. You want to make sure you talk about results and then conclusions. And then paragraph 3, you're going to summarize the movie, okay? Then you're going to get into analysis. Part 5, Roman numeral 5, should be at least 3 paragraphs, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to pick at least 3 scenes that the character you're focusing on is in from the movie. And you are going to basically pick one of the conclusions that your researcher drew about human nature. You're going to quote that in these paragraphs, okay? And you're going to say, well, Zimbardo says this about human nature, yes? And here's what the character does in this scene. And here's a quote from that character. And that shows, and Milgram can explain that and shed light on it, on the character's behavior and explain that, yes? And you're going to take 3 scenes from the character in the movie that helps shed light on specific character's behavior, okay? And use the study to shed light on the specific character's behavior. And then the last paragraph is conclusion. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3. This is 3 paragraphs, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs minimum. If you have more to say, certainly you can write more analysis. Yes, okay. And then here's how I'm grading. Okay, each one of these categories is going to be worth 25 points. Okay, so I'm looking at the introduction. You set up the paper, bring the reader into the idea of obedience to authority, abuse of power, the effects of environment or roles on the way we perceive people or the way we act. Yes. And then you should also have a strong thesis. The conclusion should leave the reader with something to think about, give that final so what. Should state implications for beyond what is in the paper and be real life applicable. Then you're going to summarize the article, okay, that you're using as a lens, okay. Summarize methods, results, conclusions of the study. Then you're going to summarize the movie. Okay, so at the end of this paragraph, you should have an in-text citation that's Milgram or Zimbardo and a page range. At the end of this paragraph, you should have an in-text citation that's Sorkin, because that's going to be the citation you use because he is the writer of the movie. And then you're going to have at least 3 analysis paragraphs that are going to focus on different scenes of the film with the character in it and the character you're focusing on. And in 3 different scenes, you're going to show how either Milgram or Zimbardo, depending on which researcher you choose to use, how they can explain the character's behavior in that scene, okay? You're going to be graded also on paraphrasing, quotation, and citation of author's ideas. Make sure you make clear which ideas belong to you and to each of your sources. So use attributive tags, use in-text citations when the ideas from your paper come from a source. Don't use the first person. This is a third-person paper. I'm looking for you to use your best grammar, spelling, mechanics, and citations. Again, you have to have in-text citations and a works cited page. I'm looking for clarity of expression and make sure your ideas flow well together. And I'm looking at the overall logical organization. I'm looking for transitions. If you don't use this suggested organization, which I would highly recommend using, it should make sense for the purpose of the paper, okay? And as you can see, if you look at the rubric, those things are reflected on the rubric, where I grade on a scale of 1 to 6, with 6 being the best, 1 being the worst, 5 being a mid 95, close to 95%, 4 being close to 85%, and so on. You get the idea. I rate you on each of these criteria and how they operate in your paper, okay? So we've gone over the assignment description and a little bit how to put together the paper, the rubric, and how I'm grading, okay? Here I'm going to give you a sample introduction for a comparative analysis paper written to this particular assignment, okay? And as you can see, here's the approach I would take with an introduction. You want to bring the reader into the idea of what you're talking about at the paper with a lead-in. You want to introduce the study and the conclusions from the study you're using as a lens. You want to introduce the movie A Few Good Men, the writer, the character examining using the study, and the thesis, okay? So I've kind of color-coded these, all right? And here's a sample introduction that I think is pretty strong. Now, I do want you to know that the person who wrote this paper decided they wanted to focus on both Dawson and Downey in the film, the two characters who were put on trial. I would suggest focusing on just one or the other if I were you. You only have to focus on one character, okay? All right, so here's my lead-in. Most people would admit that there are times when they have submitted to an authority figure. Of those people, there are probably several who would also admit to doing something because an authority figure said to do it, even though what was being asked of them violated their personal code of ethics. It happens every day. For example, those in the military often submit blindly to the commands of their superiors or else suffer harassment and degradation. Okay, so that's my lead-in, bringing the reader into the idea of obedience to authority. Now I'm going to introduce the study and the conclusions. There are many psychologists who have tested the concept of submission to authority, one being Stanley Milgram. The results of his famous shock study suggest that when faced with making a moral choice or submitting to an authority figure, many people will choose to submit to authority rather than act with integrity. And then I'm going to introduce the movie, the writer, yes, okay, Aaron Sorkin, and the character. To a certain extent, this concept is illustrated in the characters of Lance Corporal Dawson and PFC Downey in the movie A Few Good Men, a military drama written by Aaron Sorkin. And here's my thesis, where I say which study I'm going to use, which character I'm going to focus on, even though I'm focusing on two, okay? The conclusions about human nature Milgram draws from his study help shed light on why Dawson and Downey executed the code red when commanded to do so by Colonel Nathan Jessup in the film. Or the conclusions about human nature Zimbardo draws from his study help explain why Colonel Nathan Jessup ordered the code red. Or the conclusions about human nature Milgram draws from his study can explain Lieutenant Daniel Cathy, how Lieutenant Daniel Cathy handles the case in A Few Good Men, so on and so forth. You get the idea, okay? Again, if you're, certainly with the lead-in, if you're talking about Zimbardo, you may want to say something about environment or abuse of power. Yeah, I mean, Zimbardo also talks about obedience to authority and so on and so forth. But again, it just depends on the focus of your paper and which character you're focusing on. Okay, so hopefully seeing a sample introduction helps. Obviously, yours is going to look different because you're going to be focusing on, either Milgram or Zimbardo, and you're going to be focusing on one character, not two. But I think this gives you the idea. Okay, then I am going to go back and I am going to give you a sample analysis paragraph. Okay, so my first analysis paragraph might say something like, or start something like one scene in A Few Good Men, where the conclusions Zimbardo draws about from his study might help explain Dawson's and Downey's behavior is. Now, I realize in the sample introduction I just showed you, I was discussing Milgram. Yeah. Well, now I'm going to jump shift and use Zimbardo as a lens to explain Dawson's and Downey's behavior. So you can't just take two of my paragraphs, reword them, and make your paper. Okay. Anyway, so now I'm going to use Zimbardo instead of Milgram. An analysis paragraph should look something like this. Okay. All right. Another scene, or one scene, if you were writing it as the first paragraph, or in one scene from the movie, A Few Good Men. Okay. I'm pretending this is my second analysis paragraph in the paper. Okay. Another scene in the movie, A Few Good Men, where Philip Zimbardo's famous Stanford prison experiment, please note I'm putting the title of the article in quotation marks, can shed light on Dawson's and Downey's behavior, is in one of the final courtroom scenes after the verdict is read. After analysis of his experiment, Zimbardo suggests his study indicates the following. You gotta quote the lens. You gotta pick conclusions from that list of conclusions I gave you, okay? And quote it. Even normal, well-meaning people, when assigned roles, accept these roles because these roles free them from taking responsibility for their own actions. Do Dawson and Downey seem like normal, well-meaning people? Yeah. But do the role they play as someone just following orders free them from responsibility for their own actions? You betcha it does. Okay. Zimbardo's conclusion here helps explain the behavior of PFC Loud and Downey after the final verdict is read. Downey fails to recognize or understand why, albeit not being found not guilty of all charges, he is still dishonorably discharged from the Marines. He proclaims, here's my evidence from the movie. All right. But we didn't do anything wrong. Okay. Notice how I'm putting in-text citations in. Yes. Zimbardo, page number and page range. I'm putting in Sorkin. Yes. When I'm summarizing or quoting information from these two texts. Yes. Okay. His reaction to the verdict and being dishonorably discharged shows how he had accepted his role as a Marine following orders and performing the code red on PFC William Santiago. It also demonstrates that he still fails to take responsibility for his actions. Okay. Zimbardo's study also reveals something about Dawson's reaction to Downey's denial at the end of the movie. Same scene. I'm working with two characters, so my paragraph may be a little longer. The results of Zimbardo's study, according to him, suggest abnormal social and personal behaviors can be a product of one's environment. Okay. Yeah, Zimbardo says that. Okay. Quoting Zimbardo. Conclusion. After being removed from his station at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba for quite some time, because Dawson's on the mainland now, and after showing numerous signs of resistance to Cathy's authority throughout the movie, Dawson somewhat frees himself of his role as a Marine, simply following orders. When Downey refuses to accept responsibility for Santiago's death at the end of the movie, Dawson, free of the rigid role he plays while serving in Cuba, responds to Downey's claim that they didn't do anything wrong by saying, "We should have fought for Willie." Again, when you're quoting or summarizing evidence from the movie or from the study, you've got to use these in-text citations. Yes. So it's either Zimbardo or Milgram and page number or page range. Yeah. Or Sorkin if it's the movie. These lines indicate that Dawson is able to take responsibility for his actions when the military no longer has a grip on him. Take Dawson out of the environment, and he no longer believes that performing the code red was a reasonable or mortal act. He can see that his actions, killing Santiago, are contrary to what would be normal behavior for him. Okay, so again, topic sentence where you say, you explain the scene, okay, you lead into the lens, which is the quote from the movie, or quote from the article, yes. and then you bring in and you say then that conclusion can help explain whatever character's behavior from the movie you're looking at. You provide evidence, and then you would analyze it and explain it. Okay. And then you would move into a third or fourth analysis paragraphs. Furthermore, there's another scene that suggests that Zimbardo's conclusions from his prison experiment can shed light on Dawson and Downey's behavior, so on and so forth. Okay. This would be the sample analysis, what your analysis part might look like. So again, introduction. You've written an introduction before. I've given you a sample introduction. You're going to summarize the article, either Milgram or Zimbardo. You're going to summarize the movie and use Sorkin as the attributive tag. You are going to then 3 analysis paragraphs where you look at 3 different scenes with the character you're focusing on, and you're going to use either Milgram or Zimbardo, whichever one you choose to focus on, and the conclusions that they draw about human nature to explain the behavior of X character in the film, using details from the movie to explain how the study can explain their behavior. Okay, and the conclusions can explain their behavior. Okay, so hopefully that sample analysis paper or sample analysis paragraph helps. And again, you're writing at least 7 paragraphs for this paper. Okay, this is just the link to the assignment. Okay, I've got the rubric I'm going to use attached here. Okay, and then you're just going to open up a new doc. Remember to format it MLA guidelines, and you will submit it here. So double space, 12-point font, Times New Roman, Arial, or Courier New. Make sure you've got the heading with your name, my name, the class period, and the date, European style, at the top left-hand corner. If you can, insert your page numbers. But if that's a problem, just let me know. Don't forget to include your in-text citations and make a works cited page. Okay. And then if we go back to the weekly page, I've got all lots of links to help you. Again, I've got the Milgram conclusions with page numbers. Okay, these are very viable conclusions he makes about human nature that could be used to explain one of the characters' behaviors in A Few Good Men. Same with Zimbardo. I've got that in page numbers. Okay, I've got a script in case you want to quote. Well, you should quote A Few Good Men in places to provide the evidence. Yes. Okay. So here is a script. I've got, this is the general format. If you scroll down for MLA guidelines, your name, my name, class, date, European style, with the your last name and page number at the top right of the screen, double space, 12-point font, Times New Roman, Arial, or Courier New. That's MLA. If I go back here, I've got MLA formats for citing a film on a works cited page. I've got a link to that. So when you go to cite A Few Good Men, okay, you will want to scroll down here and use these formulas, okay, one or the other, okay. I would probably use this one, okay. I would probably use this one and put Sorkin, comma, Aaron, comma, writer, period, yeah, and then A Few Good Men, and then I forget what year and company, but that's why I linked the IMDb page. Okay, what year? Production company. Oh, that was IMDb Pro. I think we'll get it down here. want to say it is 1990 something. 1992. Thank you. And I can tell you by looking on the CD that it would be Columbia Pictures. So we are using this formula: Sorkin, comma, Aaron, comma, writer, period, A Few Good Men, italicized, period, Columbia Pictures, comma, 1990, what I say, 1992. That would be your citation. That's all you have to do. Okay, so use this formula right here under film or movies. And then for the Milgram and Zimbardo articles, you've got the page number on the actual articles. But here's a link to the anthology, the Amazon page that it comes from. You'll have to scroll down and get the information. But both of those articles I found in the anthology here. Okay. Yeah, it gets the publisher and so on and so forth. And then you will have to cite it like a work in an anthology on your works cited page. All right. So if we scroll down to anthology or collection, you would use the authors or the editors' names. This would be the oh no, sorry. It would be a work in an anthology. So you would say, for instance, if you were citing Zimbardo, comma, Philip, period, the Stanford Prison Experiment, period, in quotation marks. And then you would go to, this is the book it came from, Writing and Reading Across the Curriculum, 11th edition. Yes, italicize it, comma, edited by Lawrence Behrens and Leonard J. Rosen. Yeah. And publisher would be Longman. Yeah. And then we've got publisher, year, and page range. So again, publisher is Longman, year 2011, page range is the page range of the articles on the articles I gave you. So if you're using Zimbardo, it'll be whatever page is the article has. And then if you're using Milgram, it's whatever pages are on the articles that you have. So again, make sure for your works cited page, you are citing the Milgram or Zimbardo as a work in the anthology that is linked here, and using this formula linked here. So I think I've got everything you need. What I can do is link the articles, the PDF articles under here too, here in a minute, since I'm in the middle of making this video, and that might help you with page numbers on the citation as well. And if you need to reference the articles, they'll be there as well. So I hope this makes sense and helps you understand the lesson for this week. Happy writing. Your papers, again, are due by Wednesday, November 4th at 9 p.m. So I'm going to give you a little more time this week, and then just the normal Friday to Friday, and certainly Wednesday, the 28th of October. Please, if you want to talk to me about the paper, make an appointment with me. Email me by the end of the day on Tuesday, the 27th, and I can meet with you on Google Classroom on Wednesday, the 28th, and help you through this paper if you think you need it. Give me a shout if you need me. Good luck writing the paper. Miss Cohn signing out.